Rajendra Kumar Makijani, I told you, he is currently in an MBA program in one of the most prestigious business schools in the Indian Institute of Management at Calcutta. And of course, one of, or best class and first class since many years he is at the school. But what was surprising for me when I asked for a CV is what he has done up to now. And then I realized that we have, again, chosen somebody who actually is a professional in winning prizes. I don't give you the pages and pages of achievements and prizes as one, but I mean, just to give you a flavor of it, he was selected to represent India at Horizons, an international workshop on culture and religion organized by the UNICEF Switzerland 2 years ago, or a year ago. He won the prestigious Dora Tata Merit Scholarship in '94. He was one of the Tata scholars. He won the Principals Award for Best All-Rounder in the year 1997 and '98. He got the College Award. And then we go to dramatics. First prize and merit certificate for acting for English play. Second prize and merit certificate for acting for the Hindi play at the Youth Festival in '97. Second prize for the Hindi play at Malhar in '97. Third prize for Hindi play in '96, and we could go on and on and on. He got another 2 prizes in advertising, very creative, because he also produced already videos, film and video production, creative writing. He is in debating clubs and so on. So I'm not worried. And I give the word to Rajendra Kumar Makijani.
A very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen here. I couldn't have expected a better introduction from Professor Probst, and I'm really, really thankful to him. It's definitely taken a lot of butterflies away from my stomach that I had before I wanted to present. So, Alice falls through the rabbit hole and enters New Marketland. The world was never going to be the same again for Alice. It will never be the same for us. The squirrel shows her the ways of this world. And surely, they are completely different from what she has ever seen before. This world, ladies and gentlemen, is my vision for the future. I would like to thank the organizers, the sponsors, and the jury of ISC Symposium for bestowing this honor on me and for providing me with this great opportunity to share my vision of the world with the members of this esteemed gathering. Conceptually, the essay talks about how on one hand, technology will unleash a whole new range of possibilities. The first block up there. Technically infeasible, too high transaction costs. These are phrases that are going to be totally outdated and out of use. On the other hand, a progressive global legal framework will do away with the constraints that hinder individual and collective prosperity. Coupled with a new cultural paradigm, these will provide man with the freedom to choose from a whole array of options. The freedom to choose, which will lead to the empowerment of man. Man can mix and match the elements of whatever he does. Production, distribution, communication, marketing, etc. Mix and match the elements exactly as you want, totally customized. Thus, I see man as a much more empowered species in the future than he is today. These facilities and environments make man potentially powerful. But there will be some skills which I call the maximizing skills, which will help man actualize that potential. Included here in these maximizing skills is the ability to use knowledge as a tool to make the right choice out of the enormous choices available and made possible by technology. This then leads to another choice that man will have to make. A choice not concerning the mixing and matching of elements of what he does, but a choice about himself. And this choice will be the crucial factor in deciding whether all of this power will end up destroying himself or will make this world a wonderland. But as you see those blank boxes there, I will let the story tell you what the choice is. So ladies and gentlemen, presenting Alice's adventures in New Marketland. Alice fell through the rabbit hole. When she peeped through the keyhole in the door, she saw a marketplace on the other side. She wanted to enter the market and sell off the shoes she was carrying in her knapsack. But to enter, she had to be the right size. She drank a potion and cut her size to become lean and mean and entered the market. The market was rather strange. Rabbits with long ears were the only guys who could sell. Later she learned that this was because they were better at listening to the market and the consumer. The other strange thing was that though there were no customers, the rabbits were busy dispatching parcels to ants through ants who were dressed as postmen. A busy marketplace without any customers, thought Alice as she began to set up her shop. A shy squirrel appeared and said, "There are customers, but they're all far away. When they need something, the sellers just send out parcels through the postman." "But how would the sellers know who wants what and when?" The squirrel smiled and said, "They know. Virtually everything is possible." And he vanished. Much to her relief, Alice saw a few real customers coming. A group of friends, perhaps. A sparrow, a frog, a spider, and a centipede. The spider and centipede was shouting at the frog as they were approaching. "You still want to shop the way your fuddy-duddy grandfather shopped, eh?" The sparrow asked Alice, "What do you have for me?" Alice proudly put forward her best quality shoes. "And for me," said the frog. Alice took out another pair of similar shoes. "But I have 4 legs," said the frog. "And I have 6 legs," said the spider. "And I have 100, said the centipede. "We all need different kinds of shoes," they said in a chorus. "If I sit to make a different shoe for each one of you, how will I earn my profit?" said Alice with her hands on her hips. "And if you don't make a different shoe for each one of us, I wonder how will you even recover your cost?" said the sparrow, and they all went off. "Mass customization," said a voice from the corner. The squirrel appeared again. "Make to order. Know beforehand what the customer's specifications are and make accordingly." "But how can I know each customer's preferences just before making the product?" "You can. Virtually everything is possible," said the squirrel with a smile. "What about costs?" "Your production process has to be as flexible as my tail, and your costs have to be kept under control by cutting on wastage, pile up stocks. Why, even I don't store nuts for the winter any longer, because your price has to be the carrot for the customer." "What price are you selling at?" $30 a pair. "They sell them for 15 1,000 miles from here." 1,000 miles away. How will the customers know?" "They know. Virtually everything is possible," said the squirrel and smiled, and again vanished. Alice was really impatient now. "How does everybody know everything here?" she said aloud with despair. A turtle who had been listening to everything with his head buried in his shell took his head out and said sadly to Alice, "They really do. Come, I will show you how." And they started walking. On the way, the turtle told her that he used to be a car dealer. And he told her about his cousins who were traveling agents, stockbrokers, traveling salesmen, and other kinds of middlemen, all cousins. They were known as the grease of the marketplace, folks who helped do things more efficiently than if you were doing it alone. But ever since the king Gill Bates had proclaimed the era of frictionless capitalism, all of them were out of job. Their skills and services were not required anymore. By then, they reached a pool of water. It was called the Brilliant Pool. The story then describes the internet metaphorically as a pool of water of information and knowledge, and how the middlemen became redundant because of it. "Wow!" exclaimed Alice. "Customized communication," said a voice from somewhere. Alice didn't have to guess. It was the squirrel again. "Now I know. Virtually everything is possible," said Alice. The squirrel smiled and vanished. Yes, said an enthusiastic parrot joining into the conversation. At the turn of the century, that is, in the year 2000, the Gartner Group says that such consumer goods sales through the pool was a meager $6.1 billion, and business-to-business trade using the pool was $175 billion. Today, it is so much that, asked Alice, who could hardly contain her excitement any longer, so much that I can't even keep a count. The parrot, who was fond of numbers and history, then goes on to give detailed numbers on the explosive growth of business through the pool. Okay, we know you have all your figures memorized, interrupted Amina. Let me tell you something more heartwarming than mere numbers, she said. My old neighbor lost his wings in an accident a few years back. He became immobile, but he uses his beak to tap into the pool and does the birthday and family shopping. The pool gave him independence and self-esteem. I can't wait to see the person who created this brilliant pool, exclaimed Alice. Come, I will take you to meet him, said the miner. So the parrot, the miner, and Alice reached the office of Jerry Bang, the mouse who founded Yahoo, part of the pool. Instead of a huge, ostentatious office, Alice saw that there was just a nondescript desk, a couple of cheap plastic milk crates, and papers and magazines piled in a corner. Old Jerry still wore jeans to office. Could this be the face of 21st century capitalism? She thought to herself. The miner replied, all offices don't have to look formal. Don't be deceived by the way the office looks. Oh, certainly don't, interrupted the parrot. Why, even back in 1998, shares of Yahoo were quoted at more than $200, and Jerry became a billionaire at such a young age. Even then, Yahoo was valued at $8 billion by some institutions. I admire your creation and you very much, said Alice to Jerry. And Jerry simply said, thanks. Kids these days just don't think of it as something amazing. They just take it for granted. They then left, allowing Jerry to continue working out newer innovations and offerings. The squirrel appeared again and said, there is no respite from continuous and constant efforts to innovate, and vanished. Or from continuous efforts to buy out the innovators, quickly added the parrot. You see, one of the major people in the pool business is the king Gill Bates, like our medieval kings and queens, who would at the slightest provocation say, off with his head. King Gill Bates, at the slightest innovation, would say, buy him out. And right now, off we go along with your big mouth, said Mina. And dragging the parrot along, she bid a goodbye to Alice, and they flew away. Alice shouted, thanks a lot for the delightful company and information. Alice then gets into a boat and reaches India. She meets a cat who asks her about the United States of America. Well, are you familiar with America? Asked Alice. Why, I am familiar with America, Japan, Germany, and France. I and my neighbors have our sons and daughters working in each of these countries. It's so simple. We produce the best software. People, like my sons, of course, they just put their CVs on the pool, and whoever needs them anywhere, and of course is ready to pay the dollars, she said, laughing greedily, can get them to work in whichever country they want. Alice remembered talking to the Indian miner in America. Alice turned around. It was almost as if she was searching for the squirrel. And surely, the squirrel did appear. Perfect labor mobility, said the squirrel. No legal barriers. You got the skills, be it software, nursing, accounting, or sculpting, or whatever. You get to wherever it pays best. And while the government allows it, the pool makes it possible. This time, both of them said in unison, virtually everything is possible. The squirrel vanished again. It wasn't a one-way flow, Alice observed later. There were a lot of American, European, Japanese, and other businessmen doing business in India. As she entered the market, she noticed a lot of wealthy-looking bats. Later, she was to find out that bats were the best-paid professionals. Actually, the environment of this place was quite uncertain. The governments could change at the drop of a hat. There could be a lot of fluctuations at the currency markets. Consumer preferences would show no clear trends because of such varied cultural inflows from all parts of the world, thanks to satellite television and modern communication. In such conditions, no one would know what would spring up next from the darkness. But the bats had this unique skill of seeing in such darkness. This skill was most valued at that time. Moreover, the bats could hang upside down and look at things very differently. They could turn everything on its head and give entirely new perspectives. Obviously, the possessors of this skill were doing very well for themselves and for their companies. In fact, everybody who did well for their companies did well for themselves. Everybody had stock options at all levels in the organization. But all of this was to be discovered later. For now, Alice began to set up her shop. Alice set up a shop of shoes, and she began to make shoes at an incredible pace. So incredible that this time the squirrel appeared in amazement and asked her, "Where did you learn to make them so fast?" "I saw the rabbit next to my shop in America doing it this way." "You should pay him his royalty, or you shouldn't use his method," said the squirrel quite grimly. This was one face of the chuckling squirrel Alice hadn't seen before. She said, "I'm sure I couldn't do that in America, but here—" "You cannot do it anywhere," the squirrel interrupted rather sharply. "The patent laws are applicable everywhere." "Why? They can't produce so many bioproducts in America without paying the royalties to Indian innovators." Now, Alice couldn't understand this apparent contradiction. "But I thought that this was the age of sharing information and knowledge for the good of all," she said. "Indeed it is," said the squirrel. "But the benefits of using the knowledge developed by someone else brings along with itself the responsibility of contributing to the generation of more knowledge. When you pay for using the knowledge, you are essentially patronizing and encouraging new quests for knowledge. Knowledge which helps us do things better. Knowledge which helps us make the right choice. Knowledge which is most valued in our world." "But isn't this world all about freedom and doing what one wants to do?" said Alice. "Isn't that what the pool is all about?" asked Alice, who was probably trying to close her eyes to the truth that she was seeing in the squirrel's argument. "It indeed is," said the squirrel again. "The pool gives you tremendous power and freedom. The pool enables you. But this tremendous power is moderated by no one else but your own self. Self-restraint is the key word," said the squirrel. Alice was now beginning to understand the underlying principle of how this wonderland worked. She urged the squirrel to tell her more. Alice sat down with intent eyes and watched the squirrel. The squirrel took a deep breath and said, "Look, there are a lot of places in the pool where you can have fun and play around. Everyone can tap into the pool even while they're working in their office, but everyone has to restrain himself. More than half of the creatures work from their homes through the pool. They restrain themselves. The pool has brought transparency. If the people in charge of a company do not perform well, it is there for all to see. Through the pool, top people in a company can also do a random check on individuals at any level. This necessitates self-restraint. Moreover, since everybody has shares in the company's profits, they have to restrain themselves from doing things harmful to the company. At a still broader level, America, France, Russia, China, Britain, India, and Pakistan got together and destroyed all their dangerous weapons on their own, each realizing the tremendous amount of wastage that these lead to. Why? With the pool, the communication between ordinary Indians and Pakistanis also became one-to-one. The tremendous business opportunities that the pool made possible between the two countries made the creatures of the two countries dismantle the barriers that their rulers had created. The pool is about such transparency, and such transparency necessitates self-restraint, self-regulation, and self-governance. This, friends, is the missing slide when I showed it to you first. It is our choice as an empowered species to exercise self-restraint and convert our world into a wonderland, or to be indiscriminate and end up annihilating our own selves. At that time, the parrot, who was fond of history and numbers, and whom Alice had met in America, appeared from nowhere and said, "The one construct that the latter half of the 19th century and the whole of the 20th century gave us was that of equality. Equality of workers and management earlier on, then equality of sexes, and then the equality of races. The one construct that the 21st century has given us is self-restraint." This time, the parrot really did go beyond the numbers. Alice got up. She knew what she had to do. She was going to try and to innovate and find a method even better than the one she had been imitating. The squirrel knew her mind. He said, "The pool can help you do that too. All those who do research put up something about the nature of their project onto the pool. Go on and find out if someone else is doing a similar research. Then you can exploit what they call the synergies during the research and, of course, the royalties after the research." "I will," said Alice. The squirrel smiled and said, "Virtually everything is possible." "No," said Alice emphatically. The squirrel was quite taken aback. Alice smiled and said, "Everything is possible." Thank you.
Peter, Valerie, and Rajendra, thank you so much. This was great fun listening to you. I would really like to pass on to the floor and invite you to ask some question. I think we should spend a little bit.
My question is for Rajendra. Okay. I do agree your point related to self-restraint. And of course, there is sacrifice in this, and also choice. I'd like to start my question by stating some lyrics from Metallica band. I don't know how many are listening to this music. The thing is, nothing else matters, you know. And they say, "Trust to see, and I find in you everything for something new. Open mind for a different you, and nothing else matters." So, do you think that the choice and the sacrifice can, sum the individualism that the self-restraint cannot create?
There were two parts to what I said about self-restraint, etc. One is the one that comes from within, which I think for which we need to kind of so-called emphasis on moral values these days and on ethics, etc. To which, in fact, we attended the leadership session yesterday, which stressed so much on ethics education in business schools, etc. So that's one that comes from within. And the other one is that of this regime created by the internet, this era of frictionless capitalism or whatever. This also brings forward an era which is transparent. Now, in a transparent world, I'll give you some very live examples from our institute. We have an electronic notice board to which you could send an email from anywhere. And there were a couple of guys who kind of tried to, do some not very desirable things and wrote some pretty undesirable things and put them on the notice board. Now, these guys were tracked down. So there's transparency. There's accountability, which creates self-restraint. It's like the celestial system in which each planet, each star, has an amazing amount of gravitational pull and centrifugal force. Each of them is highly empowered. However, since all the others also in the system are empowered, each one of them is exerting a gravitational pull, and ultimately, everybody stays in orbit. Nobody falls out of orbit. And when they do, they are absolutely self-annihilating. So it's these two things, one from within, and the other one is transparency, which necessitates self-restraint.
Thank you very much. I think this was a very good, clear, inspirational statement on which closes off this round. I would like to thank our three student speakers so much, and again congratulate them on their accomplishments. Thank you very much. Then, to close this off, also